It wasn't one moment or one specific thing that happened. There just came a point in time where there was enough there that I realized it just wasn't healthy and I couldn't trust what we had.
Recent revelations from court documents related to Jeffrey Epstein have once again placed Bill Gates at the center of public attention. In 2024, when his name appeared in multiple files, Gates immediately denied all allegations and stated that being mentioned had damaged his reputation. For a long time, Bill Gates avoided addressing the issue in depth, acknowledging only that maintaining contact with Epstein was a serious error in judgment. However, Melinda Gates has now officially spoken out, and what she revealed has exposed what she described as the full dark truth behind the world's wealthiest billionaire. The history and context of the relationship between Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. The connection between Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein is believed to have begun in 2011, about 3 years after Epstein pleaded guilty in Florida to charges related to soliciting a minor. At that time, Gates was increasingly shifting his focus from technology to global philanthropy, particularly in healthcare, vaccines, and scientific research. Epstein, despite his legal scandal, maintained an extensive network that included wealthy and influential figures. He reportedly approached Gates through mutual contacts, presenting himself as someone capable of linking major donors with ambitious initiatives. Early meetings took place in a professional context. Epstein expressed interest in helping raise funds for large-scale scientific and charitable programs. The idea aligned with Gates's goal of expanding resources for global projects, leading the two to agree to further discussions. Some reports indicate that Epstein proposed creating new financial structures designed to attract ultra-wealthy investors to support long-term research. Between roughly 2011 and 2014, Gates and Epstein met several times in person. One widely cited meeting was a dinner at Epstein's private residence in New York, where conversations reportedly focused on science, philanthropy, and strategies for funding global initiatives. There has been no public evidence suggesting that Gates visited Epstein's private island or participated in any illegal activities. Their interactions were largely described as exploratory, centered on potential collaboration rather than a personal relationship. Epstein at one point suggested establishing a joint charitable fund or financial platform to support major scientific projects. However, these plans never developed into a formal agreement, according to media reports. Gates gradually became more cautious and avoided deeper commitments. Subsequent exchanges were mostly limited to emails and phone calls regarding business or fundraising ideas, but no official project emerged. By late 2014, Gates is believed to have ended contact with Epstein. Reports suggest he grew increasingly skeptical about Epstein's credibility and recognized that continuing the association could pose reputational risks for both himself and his philanthropic work. This decision effectively closed a connection that had lasted about 3 years, but never evolved into a formal partnership. The story did not end there. Even after the two were no longer in contact, Epstein was reportedly still referencing Gates's name when speaking with potential partners. The issue gained major attention following Epstein's death in 2019, as media outlets began closely examining his network of relationships. Gates's past meetings with Epstein, even within a charitable context, quickly became a subject of public debate, facing growing scrutiny. Bill Gates publicly expressed regret. He described meeting Epstein as a substantial error in judgment and acknowledged that he now regretted the time spent on the relationship. Gates also emphasized that the purpose of their meetings was strictly related to philanthropy and that he never established a deep business or personal relationship with Epstein. These statements marked Gates's first formal response to the increasing public attention. At the same time, the situation sparked broader discussions about personal responsibility, the importance of carefully evaluating partners, and the reputational risks that influential figures may face when operating within complex social networks. Details from the latest documents. Newly released materials linked to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation have drawn renewed attention due to references to several high-profile individuals, including Bill Gates. The documents, reportedly made public in January 2026, consist of more than 3 million pages of emails, contact lists, and draft notes dating back to around 2013. Much of the content includes internal writings attributed to Epstein, some of which were never sent or formally shared. While the scale of the release is significant, experts have cautioned that the presence of a person's name in such records does not automatically indicate wrongdoing. Bill Gates is mentioned multiple times within Epstein's draft emails and personal memoranda. Several of these notes appear to have been written by Epstein for his own reference rather than as correspondence, because they were not verified communications. Their reliability has been the subject of debate. Legal analysts have emphasized that investigative files often contain unverified claims, personal impressions, or strategic notes that require careful interpretation. Among the most widely discussed elements are allegations recorded in Epstein's private writings. In certain drafts, Epstein claimed that Gates had engaged in an extramarital relationship with what he described as Russian girls, and suggested that Gates had contracted a sexually transmitted infection. Another note reportedly alleged that Gates sought Epstein's assistance in obtaining antibiotics and keeping the matter hidden from his wife, Melinda. These claims were presented as statements within Epstein's own notes, rather than documented events supported by independent evidence. Additional entries reference tensions between Epstein and Boris Nikolic, a science advisor who had professional ties to Gates. Some notes suggested disagreements over philanthropic or scientific initiatives. Though details remain limited, other passages alluded to possible marital strain, while one draft implied that Epstein felt betrayed when a deeper or longer-term association with Gates did not materialize. Observers have pointed out that such language may reflect Epstein's personal frustrations rather than objective fact. The significance of these documents lies largely in their ability to provide insight into Epstein's private thinking, but their limitations are equally important. Personal notes, especially unsent ones, do not meet the evidentiary standards required in court. They can include speculation, exaggeration, or attempts to gain leverage in negotiations. Some commentators have suggested that certain writings could have been intended to enhance Epstein's perceived influence or to pressure associates, though such interpretations remain speculative. Crucially, the documents do not contain criminal charges against Bill Gates, nor do they indicate that he has been prosecuted in connection with Epstein's offenses. Being referenced in investigative material is not equivalent to being accused in a court of law. Legal experts frequently stress that raw files must be distinguished from substantiated findings. As public interest continues, the release highlights the challenges of interpreting large investigative archives. Names, claims, and fragments of communication can quickly shape public narratives, even when their accuracy is uncertain. For that reason, many analysts urge caution, emphasizing the importance of separating documented facts from unverified assertions while allowing legal standards, not public speculation, to determine responsibility. Reactions from Bill Gates and related parties following the release of the latest documents. Bill Gates moved quickly to address the renewed public scrutiny. In an official statement, he rejected the allegations contained in Epstein's private notes, describing them as completely false and unfounded. Gates emphasized that the claims were based on unsent drafts and personal writings rather than verified communications. He reiterated that being mentioned in such materials should not be interpreted as evidence of wrongdoing. In a reported interview in February 2026, Gates expressed strong regret about his past association with Epstein. He stated that spending any time with Epstein was a mistake and acknowledged that the decision reflected poor judgment. At the same time, he firmly denied the specific accusations outlined in the documents, maintaining that the content was inaccurate. Gates also stressed that many of the emails referenced were never sent, arguing that unverified drafts should be viewed with caution. A spokesperson for Gates reinforced this position, offering additional context about the relationship. According to the representative, Epstein had been disappointed when efforts to establish a deeper business or philanthropic partnership did not succeed. The spokesperson suggested that some of the claims found in Epstein's notes may have been attempts to damage Gates's reputation or exaggerate a connection that ultimately remained limited. The representative further clarified that Gates never visited Epstein's private island and was not involved in any illegal activities connected to Epstein. The meetings that did occur, the spokesperson said, were centered on philanthropic discussions and did not result in formal collaboration. This clarification aimed to draw a clear boundary between exploratory conversations and any suggestion of personal involvement in misconduct, beyond the immediate responses. The situation has contributed to a broader public conversation about accountability among influential figures. Analysts and commentators have noted that individuals with significant resources and global reach often rely on extensive networks to advance philanthropic or scientific goals. However, these networks can also create reputational risks if partners are not carefully vetted. The renewed attention surrounding Gates highlights the growing expectation that prominent leaders exercise rigorous judgment when choosing associates. In an era of heightened transparency, even limited connections can attract intense scrutiny. As a result, the episode has become part of a wider discussion about due diligence, ethical responsibility, and the importance of safeguarding public trust in large-scale charitable work. Melinda French Gates's reflections and the impact on the marriage. As public attention intensified following the release of new investigative materials, Melinda French Gates delivered one of her most candid public responses in years. Appearing on NPR's Wild Card podcast in February 2026, she spoke with calm precision but did not hide the emotional weight of the subject. She described her reaction to the latest revelations as unbelievably sad and beyond heartbreaking, signaling that the issue remained deeply personal despite the passage of time. For much of the period following her divorce, Melinda had chosen not to discuss the private fractures within her marriage in detail. This interview marked a shift, offering listeners a clearer understanding of how profoundly the situation had affected her. During the conversation, Melinda explained that the renewed reporting resurfaced memories from what she characterized as one of the most difficult chapters of her life. She noted that while she had worked intentionally to heal and move forward, certain details inevitably brought back the emotional strain she experienced during the final years of the marriage. Rather than revisiting every painful moment, she emphasized the importance of acknowledging the past without allowing it to define the future. Healing, she suggested, required discipline, focusing on personal growth, surrounding oneself with trusted support systems, and making deliberate choices about what to carry forward. Melinda also indicated that she had, at times, consciously set aside distressing information in order to maintain stability for her family and continue her philanthropic responsibilities. Balancing public leadership with private difficulty demanded resilience. She implied that many of the hardest decisions were made quietly, away from headlines, as she evaluated what kind of life she wanted in the years ahead. Her remarks conveyed a sense of reflection rather than accusation, pointing toward a thoughtful process that unfolded over time. A defining element of Melinda's response was her strong empathy for the victims connected to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. She stated unequivocally that no girl should ever have to experience such harm and expressed hope that those affected, now adult women, would continue to find justice and support. She described their experiences as almost unimaginable, reinforcing the gravity of the abuse, while urging the public not to lose sight of the individuals at the center of the case. By focusing on survivors, Melinda redirected attention from prominent figures to the broader human consequences of exploitation. She stressed the importance of listening to victims, believing their accounts, and ensuring that systems exist to protect vulnerable people. Her comments reflected a long-standing pattern in her advocacy work, which has consistently emphasized the rights, safety, and advancement of women and girls worldwide. Observers quickly noted that this perspective aligned with decades of philanthropic leadership. Throughout her career, Melinda has supported programs aimed at expanding healthcare access, improving maternal outcomes, increasing educational opportunities for girls, and addressing gender-based violence. Her response, therefore, appeared consistent with the values she has publicly championed, placing dignity and protection at the center of social progress. The discussion naturally extended to the end of her marriage to Bill Gates. When the couple announced their divorce in May 2021, they described the decision as the result of extensive reflection in the podcast. Melinda clarified that the separation was not caused by a single incident, but by a gradual accumulation of concerns. Trust, she suggested, had been affected over time, and Gates's past association with Epstein was among the factors that contributed to that erosion. Her explanation portrayed divorce not as a sudden rupture, but as the conclusion of a long internal process. She spoke about the importance of honesty with oneself, recognizing when a relationship can no longer provide the foundation needed for mutual growth. Making that decision, she implied, required courage as well as clarity, particularly after nearly 3 decades of shared life, parenting, and professional collaboration. The transition reshaped not only their personal lives, but also their philanthropic partnership. Melinda eventually chose to step away from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, an organization the couple had built into one of the world's most influential charitable institutions. The departure allowed her to concentrate fully on her own initiatives, including organizations focused on advancing women's economic power and leadership. As part of this restructuring, Bill Gates pledged approximately $8 billion to support Melinda's independent charitable work. The financial commitment provided immediate scale to her efforts and signaled continued support for the causes she prioritized. Even as their professional paths diverged, Melinda described the move as essential for turning the page and creating space for the next chapter of her life, one defined by autonomy and renewed purpose. In reflecting on the broader journey, Melinda's tone remained forward-looking. She spoke less about loss and more about transformation, emphasizing the possibility of rebuilding after profound change. Her remarks suggested that adversity can clarify personal values and sharpen one's sense of direction, rather than allowing past challenges to overshadow the future. She framed them as experiences that informed wiser choices. Taken together, Melinda French Gates's statements offered a rare glimpse into the human dimension behind a story often dominated by legal documents and public scrutiny. Without assigning blame or amplifying controversy, she presented a narrative centered on healing, responsibility, and momentum. At the same time, her unwavering empathy for survivors served as a reminder that beyond the reputational debates surrounding powerful individuals lies a deeper imperative: recognizing harm, supporting those affected, and working toward a safer and more accountable society.